Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Today I am on the StencilGirl Creative Team showing you some things that you can do with some artist trading cards to make texture and mark making using StencilGirl Stencils. So obviously the first thing I think of when I say make texture with stencils is modeling paste or molding paste, it's sometimes called. This is the Golden brand light molding paste. And I put it through the stencil, which is S058, designed by Mary Beth Shaw, using a metal palette knife, scraping it through, trying to make it as smooth as possible. And that leaves a raised area, a textured area on my artist trading card. An artist trading card is the size of a baseball card or a Pokemon card. It's 3.5 by 2.5 inches. And I cut mine out of sheets of 140-pound watercolor paper because it's nice and heavy and can take a lot of mediums and things. So I didn't even wait for it to dry or anything. I just went on to the next step, and that is to use some golden high flow acrylic. This is a artist quality paint. It has a lot of pigment in it, and I drip it on to the textured area and then spray it and move the card around and let all those colors blend and highlight the texture by kind of sinking down in between the textured area from the stencil. I also did some mark making with the leftover wet paint onto another card, using the edge of a card and just making some lines and hash marks with it. That's some mark making. Remember, we're doing texture and mark making this month. Then I highlighted the texture even more by using a Stabilo All pencil in black and kind of just making some little marks around the edges of some of the circles. And then I blended that out with a water tank brush. Stabilo is very water reactive, and so I can easily blend that and just kind of highlight some of those areas. I also had painted some of those two colors of paint onto another piece, which is actually just a piece of cardboard from a cereal box. And I'm making some shapes that are similar to the ones on the stencil. To me, they look like pebbles or river rocks or something, smoothed rocks. So I cut a couple of them out of the piece I did the mark making on. I cut some out of the pieces that were painted, and then I also cut some out of some black cardstock, a scrap. I'm going around the edge of everything with a brush marker to make sure that the edges don't show up white when they shouldn't. They should be black all the way around. And then I'm adding even more texture, and this is another way to add texture to a project by making it stand out from the background by using some foam tape or foam squares. This is sticky on both sides. These are already pre-cut into a couple different sizes of squares, which makes them easy to use. The only thing that's not easy is peeling this stupid peeling off. It drives me crazy. I put some of them up on the foam squares, and then I put some of the rocks or circles or whatever they are right onto the card so that we get some dimension and some texture. One little tip, if you're using dark colors like that black, the foam square is white and it will show if you have the card tilted at all. So I like to take a brush marker and just color the edges of it so that the edges of the foam square are black as well, which makes me less crazy. So once I got everything either put down with foam squares or put down with glue, then I'm taking some, oh, I guess I still needed one more. I must have needed one more. Oh, I did. Okay. I needed one more green one down there just to make it look normal. Then I took some stick-on gems in that same olive green color, some turquoise and a black one, little gems, and stuck those on just to add even more texture or dimension. I added some splatters because I like splatters and I think they create visual texture. They break up the colors and make it a little bit more random. And then to finish this one off, I put the word explore from one of the um, Tim Holtz sticker packs that I have, because it reminds me of a stream and the water running over a stream of polished rocks. So that was ways to create texture on the first ATC. The next one, I am using a different stencil. This one is designed by Ward, and it is S008. It's a starburst or sunburst type looking thing. It reminds me of a sun. And sunshine is, something that's a very common theme where I live in Tucson, Arizona, because we have a lot of sun. So I decided to make some sunny cards. This is some highly concentrated watercolor, and I used a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. Here's a little bit of white gesso. But the thing that I wanted to show you, a way to make marks with stencils, is to use up whatever's left on the stencil and use it kind of like a stamp or a monoprint. Obviously, I have two cards here that look very different. One's the reverse, and one is the you know the way the stencil looks. What do you want to call it? And then I'm using some different modeling paste. This is from Crafter's Workshop, and it's already colored for you. The other one was white, and you could add acrylic paint or something to it to color it. This one is metallic already, and I use that through the stencil, and it makes a textured metallic piece. Then I'm also using the stencil with some paint on a couple scraps, a couple gel printed scraps of paper, because I'm going to collage some little cactus to go with my sunshine on my cards. So I'm using a couple different greens. I'm using a makeup brush to go through the stencil and add the greens over these gel printed pieces. Sometimes you just need to add some more stuff to them, and stencils are a great way to do that. So then I cut out the pieces using some sharp scissors into different little shapes, and I'm going to collage those onto the card. I'm using gloss medium. This is the DecoArt gloss medium, because the raised area there that I put through the stencil with a palette knife is shimmery or shiny. It's metallic. So I don't want to ruin the metallic area by putting matte medium over it. Matte makes everything more matte. So that didn't make sense. So I'm using a gloss medium on this and gluing down all my little pieces. I ended up doing both cards, the one that had the visual texture or mark making using the stencil leftovers, and then also this one that I put the watercolor through. And I just left both the processes in here. The idea of this one was to make marks by using paint or leftover ink on a stencil. But even if you're just stenciling along with regular paint, you can turn it over and make a mark on a scrap piece with the leftovers. It helps you kind of clean up the stencil a little bit, and it makes a mark. So this one is the one I was talking about. It's got the leftover watercolor as a mark on it. And then I'm also going to use some of that Crafter's Workshop. This one's copper color. The other one was called antique gold, I think, or something like that. But making the sunshine through the stencil with the molding paste or modeling paste, which gives a textured area. And then to finish these up, I'm using a white Posca pin to make like little spines and highlights and things, and little dots to represent the spiky things that every plant we have in Arizona has, pretty much, even the trees. Then I'm using um, my set of Faber-Castell pit brush pins and a water brush to add just a little bit, a few more things on there. Some mountains in the background of one of them, and some shading and on the cactuses as I go with different colors of green, just to make them stand out from the background a little bit more. So the reason I'm doing artist trading cards for this challenge in July is because I actually made these in June because all this stuff has to be done in advance. And we were having the artist trading card a day challenge all of June where you made an artist trading card every day. So these are some that are left over from June, even though I know it's July now. But these were made in June. I also went around the edges. I like to go around the edges of my cards with ink pads to just give them a little bit of a border. And it's easy to do that with permanent ink pads. That one was the olive colored one from Ranger. So there you see I'm adding some mountains and blending that with my brush. These brush pens are made out of India ink, so they're permanent once they're dry. So that's my second ATC for Stencil Girl, making textures and mark making. So my third one, and a one that I really like to do mark making with stencils, probably my favorite way to do stencils, is with a gel plate. And this particular stencil is an ATC mix-up stencil that was designed by Mary Beth Shaw. It's L543. And of course, the links to all these stencils and other products that I used in this video are below the video in the description box so that you can check all those out, figure out how to get anything that I showed in the video. So the first thing I did with my gel plate is I put some black on there with a brayer, and then I put the stencil down over it, and I used a piece of scratch paper to press down and pull up some of that black off the inside of the stencil. The stencil's still on there. I haven't removed it. And then I wanted to clean it up even a little bit more and kind of create a halo effect. So I put a little bit of white on there too over the top of the stencil, and I pulled all that extra paint up with scratch paper, scratch deli paper that I have. It's my underpaper that I used. Then I'm using some PBO Dyna iridescent paints, and I'm putting them here and there with my 2-inch brayer. This is a small brayer, and filling up all that space with the shimmery paints. Then as I'm doing that, I am rolling it off on my underpaper, which is a deli paper, and I actually end up using that. And here I am mark making again. I use that too on some of that scratch paper and also kind of cleaning up the stencil a little bit. So then I pick up all these layers of paint onto my 2 black cardstock ATCs by putting a very thin layer of black over everything, putting my ATCs down, pressing them down, and then peeling them up. And what I end up with is kind of a reverse of the stencil on there in black with this shimmery paint. So then I wanted to create some texture, so I took that piece where I had rolled off my brayer to clean it, and I'm wadding it up, just wadding it up, and that creates texture by making it wrinkly. This is deli paper. It's a thin, lightweight paper that's slightly translucent, and so it just looks cool to wad it up like that and give it a little bit of crinkle. And then I cut it into some kind of thin strips that are curved somewhat so that I can glue them on the card, imitating the stencil design. I don't want to smush the texture that I've created, so I am very careful to stick these down with just glue. I didn't want to, take a brush and brush them down and press them down because it would have ruined all the texture. So I'm using just some tacky glue to glue them down and putting them along some of the shapes that are similar, these curved shapes that are from the stencil. It's a cool stencil. Really cool. I like it. And in this stencil, there are 9 different designs. So if you don't like this particular one, there's 8 others that you can use on any ATC that you have. And they have a lot of ATC mix-ups designed by different designers for StencilGirl over there on the website. So once I have those down, I think that's pretty cool. I'm making sure that they are remaining crinkly so that that texture shows that I'm building. And then I'm like, okay, now what should I do? So remember, I had cleaned up the stencil and made a mark on a different piece of scratch paper with the black part of the paint that was left on. I cut a little square out of it, and then of course it's deli paper, so I need to make it thicker with something. So I just have a little scrap of cardstock that I glue it down to. And then I decide that's going to become a textural element of my card. But it needs some color, so I take the same PBO Dyna iridescent paints and I paint in some of the stripes with the different colors. I have a pink, an orange, a teal, and a green. And so I just paint them with a brush, trying to be somewhat careful, but not super fussy, because I think I'm going to end up using a marker as well, which I do. I end up going around the black lines, going around the lines with a black marker. There we go. It's the same black Indian ink brush marker that I used to color the foam squares on the last one. And I'm actually going to put this little square on some foam squares again to make it stand out from the card. So that is my plan. So now I'm doing the lines, just drawing along the lines. I didn't have to do it, but I just thought it made it more dynamic looking. I felt like the lines were just a little bit fuzzy because that was a mark making print. Wanted them to stand out a little bit more. So then I put some foam squares on this, I color the edges, I stick it down, and pretty happy with it. Still not sure exactly where I'm going with the composition though. I need something else. So I find in my stash a an arrow. It's made out of grunge board. It's a grunge board arrow, and I paint that black and attach it. And then, to me, this particular stencil design, although it's very abstract, reminds me of a map. Things roads on a map is what it looks like to me. So I thought an arrow was appropriate. Go this way, and then I also put the word wander on there. Not all those who wander are lost. I love that particular saying, but I just put the word wander from that same Tim Holtz sticker words just to get my thing across. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment or question below, subscribe if you haven't already, share, and of course, in the links below the video, there's a link to the blog post, which also has Peg Robinson's projects. We collaborate for the team. So you can go and look at the blog post, and there's lots of stuff on their blog that's interesting and fun to look at. So that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.